Swipe to remove is a common pattern in app development. We haven't used it such far, so now it's definitely time to implement it. I want to make sure that in our card item here, the card items which we are rendering can be, well, removed when we swipe them, removed from the list, removed from the cart. Now in my app here, and that's of course always also something you can define however you want, swiping means the entire item is gone, so if we had it in the cart 3 times, it's now removed entirely. I won't add a functionality to remove single items. Obviously you could do this as a bonus task, but for the purposes of this course and demo, I'll focus on removing the entire element here. So how can we implement this? Thankfully, Flutter got us covered. There is a special widget which we can add, which we can wrap around our card here actually, and that is the Dismissible widget. That's a widget which is built into Flutter, which automatically gives us a nice animation and will remove the element it wraps from the UI. Internally, this is a stateful widget therefore, and as you can imagine, it does a lot of complex heavy lifting for managing the animation and so on. And therefore, this needs a key to work correctly to avoid issues where it then displays the list, of which this oftenest part is rendered incorrectly. Here you should render or use a value key, and the perfect value for this is of course the ID of our card item, because that's guaranteed to be unique. Now on Dismissible, you can also define a background which is shown behind that element once you start swiping. And here I'll render a container with a color where I use my theme error color, which is a red color. With that added, if you go back and you add an item to the cart, you see I can now swipe this, right? In both directions, and if I swipe enough, this indeed is gone. Now, it's not really deleted, it's just deleted on the user interface for now, which is why it's back when I go back. But we can listen, of course, to that it's gone effect and then also update it in our data to remove it from there as well. So, we added Dismissible. Now, there are a couple of things you can configure there. For one, it would be nice to understand what it does when we remove that. So here in that container, I'll also add a little child, and that will be an icon. And there I want to use the delete icon and give that a color of colors white. Also give it a size of 40 so that we can see that. And to position it correctly in the container, I will add alignment, the alignment argument, to the container and set this to alignment.center right to align it in the center vertically, but on the right horizontally. Also add some padding to the container with edge insets only on the right of 20. And with that, let's see how that works. If I save this and I add, let's say 2 items to the cart here, now you see we have that trash icon here, which kind of indicates what's about to happen when we continue swiping here. Now, if you want to make sure that the background is only behind the card, you can of course also add the same margin you added on the overall card here. And that means I just copy that edge insets set up from down there on the card. And now if I add 2 card items there, the swipe effect is only behind the card. So that's nice. Would also be nice to only swipe from right to left, let's say, not in the other direction. Thankfully, you can restrict this as well on Dismissible. So here on Dismissible, outside of the background argument, so here you can set the direction argument to set the direction in which this can be dismissed. And there you can provide a dismiss direction dot. And now here we need end to start, which typically is right to left. And if you set this and you add an item to the card, you see now swiping right to left still works, but swiping in the other direction does not work. Now, of course, we also need to define what happens once we dismissed it visually, because that only affects the UI, but of course we also want to change something in our data then. And for that we can define onDismissed, which executes a function which we define here once it's done. In that function we receive the direction in which it was dismissed, in case you're allowing different directions and you want to do something different based on the different directions. It's not the case for us here. We always want to remove the card item. But if you had different options, different swiping directions, then you could check the direction here based on the direction you're getting here as an argument automatically. But since we only have one direction, we can go right ahead and remove the item from our card. For that, in the card provider, we first of all need to add a new method, remove item. And the easiest way of getting rid of an item here is to simply receive the ID of the product it belongs to. So here we expect our product ID, and that is useful because we use that product ID as a key in our map, if you remember. That's what we assign as a key in the map. And thankfully, on maps, we also have a remove method to which we pass a key, and then the value for that key will be removed. Thereafter, we call notify listeners, and we're done. This is the easiest way of getting rid of an entry in a map. So that's what I want to call here in the card item. And for that, we need to tap into our card container, into our provider. And hence, we need to import the provider package in here from provider Dart from the provider package. And of course, import our card model here from the providers folder. With that, down here, we can set up provider of card, pass in the context, and then simply call remove item. Now, where do we get the product ID from? We can simply expect it as an input to this card item widget. So here we can expect a product ID argument here, maybe as the second argument, doesn't matter. And now in the place where you render the card items, so in the card screen, you also need to pass this as a second argument. And there you get that from card items. And just as you have a values property to give you a list of values, you can also get a list of keys. And then for that given index we're looking for, we simply pass in the key as a value to card item. So with that, we pass the key for the item we're looking at into our card item widget, and that key is the product ID. So we get the product ID here now, and with that, we can use the product ID down there. Now important, I don't really want to set up a listener to the card here, so I'll set listen to false. I really just need access to the card to dispatch my action here. Whoops, listen false here on the off method. I don't want to set up a permanent listener. With that, if we go back to our application and we add a couple of items to the card, we see them here. And now, watch the total up there when I swipe this card item. You see, the total updated because now it was really removed from the card, which is also proven by the fact that if I go back and then I go back into the card, it's still gone. So now we really not just update this visually with the help of Dismissible, but also in our data with the help of provider of and our card provider, our card container. And we're not listening here in the card item, but of course we're listening to changes in the card screen, and therefore we rebuild the card screen when our card changes, and that's exactly what I want to do because I want to rebuild the total and also my list here.